Hello guys, this is Santosh Bala doing a proof of concept using for Genesys audits query API using the Python SDK. As you all know, I've already done a proof of concept using Postman, a testing tool. This is the one already to get the audits query results of a few weeks ago. Now what we've done is we're going to do the same thing using the SDK that was provided. This is the Python SDK. This is what was provided by Genesys, but we're not going to use their packages. We're just going to do an API call and see if we can do the same thing that we did with the Postman tool. What I've done is I've downloaded PyCharm and started writing Python code. There are about 5 to 6 steps on how you do the request for compliance sake, the audits query. Genesys uses a microservices architecture in order to provide data extracts to clients for better insights and metrics into their data. It's also for security purposes, SOX compliance, PCI compliance. Just wanted to see if I can automate this through coding using Python. Python is the choice of language that I've chosen. I've done that in the past, so I've said let me try and see if I can do the same thing with Genesys using Python. There are 3 ways you can actually do the audits query. One is through the Genesys API Explorer, which we've already seen. This is the one. This is the one. You can execute requests through this interface. You can also do it through a Postman testing tool to get the same result. And the third one is using Python. So initially I've created multiple files, and then finally I consolidated all of them into one Python code file. This contains actually 5 different functions. I'm going to go through each one of them. So here are the 4 to 6 steps using the Microsoft's architecture of Genesys to extract the data. The first one is you'll have to send a client ID and a client secret. Use OAuth 2 authentication to obtain a token. A token is provided by Genesys for all subsequent requests. Then you create a post API request to the audits query to create a transaction. Then you obtain a transaction ID for the audits query. In order to see if the request has succeeded or failed, we do another request to check whether the transaction has succeeded or failed. And then finally, once the transaction has succeeded, you get to hit the results API, and then you get the result as a JSON key value pair, which can be consumed by auditors for compliance sake. So what we've done is we've used Python's request API package in order to make these requests. I have not used the provided packages by Genesys because we had issues using them. So I basically used get and post requests directly within my Python code to make sure that I get the correct result. So I've also added one more feature, which is like writing this extract to a file. and we are going to go through all of these steps in the code, Python code itself. So let's get started. So here are the basic package imports that you do for Python, and the first function that I've written is to get a token. This is basically to make sure that uh, we provide the client credentials and then we receive a token. Using that token, we basically make another request uh, for uh, for the data extract. It's called the post audit query. The function is called the post audit query. Once you finish doing this, you'll have to check the status of the query, uh, which, the request. The request could be running or the request could be succeeded. So you'll have to check the response to see if it's running or succeeded. Once it's succeeded, that means you can actually go and make the request to the results query API to get your final result set. I won't go lower because there are client client ID and client secret ID. I'm going to replace them before I'm going to run them right now, and then I'm going to show you uh, after replacing the client ID and client secret ID with the dummy values, so that this video nobody knows the actual client ID and the client secret ID. So I'm going to go ahead and run this file code and see if we get what we are looking for. Before I run this code, I'm going to delete the file that we created previously. So that's the output file that I actually created. So I'm going to delete anyways. So I'm going to write this, run this code and see if it executes as expected. I have multiple print statements inside the code, and that's the reason why you get these uh, multiple print statements out here. But finally, this is the result set that we actually need. This is exactly the audits query that we were looking for. So just by running this code, we mm, basically can output the file to an output file, and you can open this, and there you go. It's the same exact file that we created. It's an output file, and this output file can be given away to anybody that auditors want. You can basically give this away. You can do it on a schedule. You can do it every weekly or monthly, and then you can provide that file to them on a weekly or a monthly or a yearly or whatever that frequency is on a weekly or a basis. So I'm going to take this because I've already run the code and it shows that it works. I'm going to modify. I'm going to modify the code and make sure that the client ID and the client secret ID are not visible. So let's go through this code, Python code once again. You get an, this is a function that gets only the access token. And this is a function where you send the access token and the data, and then you get a string, whether it's succeeded or not. You get a transaction ID. You basically get a transaction ID. And using the transaction ID and the access token, you figure out whether the transaction has completed or not. It has to say succeeded. So we return that state here, saying that it's succeeded. And then we pass that to this query, to this function, and see if we can get the result, JSON result back. This is the actual JSON result that we get back for the audits query. In that, we use a file output and write it to a file. We send the file name and the result from the previous function. And then you can basically write it out to a file. So here's the main code where you call in each and every function. Here's the access token that you've called. This is the data that you have to input, which says that it's people permissions and the interval between the start and the end period. So you can change this. You can change this start and end period, and the service name is people permissions. This is your environment. This is the client ID and the client secret. Secret. I've changed these values so that during the recording of these video, that these are not the correct values. These are incorrect. So that even if somebody gets this video, they won't be able to get our client ID and the client secret ID. This is the environment that you have to set. Genesys will provide you with which cloud environment we are accessing. I think they use Amazon AWS for as their infrastructure as code. So here's the access token. We send in client ID, client secret ID, and environment, and we get an access token. We send this access token to a post audit query function, and then we get an ID, a transaction ID. Then we'll have to make sure that it takes time for the transaction to complete. That's why we made this sleep statement so that the transaction can complete. Given 10 seconds, you can do 5 seconds also, but 10 seconds is better. And then you check to see if the status of that transaction, and then it says succeeded. So this is state says succeeded or running. Once you know that the state has succeeded or running, and you send that to the result, it will send you a JSON audit query result set, or audit query key value pair payload in JSON format, and that you output to a file. And this is basically doing an output to a file, which is what this is. So we basically automated the whole six-step process just by writing 5 to 6 Python functions: get API, get and post API requests in order to accomplish our tasks. So here's the whole thing. And we've already executed once, so I'm not going to execute again. So this concludes proof of concept on using Genesys Python SDK to get the audit query for compliance sake, SOX and PCI compliance. Thank you for watching. This is Santosh Palla providing you with the proof of concept. Thank you very much.